Hey everyone, it's New here. Welcome. I would like to make a video today that is dedicated to the fans of this channel, who many of you have been asking me to make a video like this, essentially a showcase, an all-encompassing showcase of my Tornado Shot Deadeye character, the evolution of it this league. It's been quite a wild ride, been very good overall, and we started with a humble beginning with Soul Thirst, and we found our way all the way up to around 6 to 7 mirrors worth of gear on this character. And throughout that entire process, in fact, even with a similar character I had last league, a number of you guys have been asking me to kind of go through the character, a little bit about the history of it, kind of tell you about some of the major decisions that I've made in gearing, why I choose to do certain things, and that is what I'd like to talk about today. Now, I'm going to do this kind of my way. It may not, in fact, it's very unlikely to sort of cover any and all of the potential different questions that you guys might have, so I should probably say right out the gate, the comment section's there. You can ask questions. I'm usually pretty good about responding to them. I suspect there may be actually a lot of questions here that do not get answered in the process, but there she is, right there, the Deadeye. The timing of this video is deliberate. I did decide to make this video some time ago, but I figured I'd wait until the character is basically finished. Yeah, it's finished. The character has virtually nothing left to upgrade. There are a few little things like a double corrupted headhunter maybe, but I've essentially charted out, I think, looking back at everything, that my character has gone through an evolutionary cycle, basically 3 different stepping stones, major stepping stones, and I'm going to go through the PoE of all 3, and then at the end of the 3rd one, I'm going to kind of showcase the gear more thoroughly, I guess, and I'm going to showcase a map, one of the most aspirational types of maps that we can be running at this time, basically Delimere, Wandering Path, Winged Scarabs, Elevated Sextons, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, I'll show the Atlas passive in the process. The Atlas tree will be linked in the description below. All 3 major POBs that I'm going to go through will be linked in the description below, as well as some other things. There's a Discord now. Hopefully most of you have got the memo. If you haven't already, join the Discord. It's quite active. Everybody's super friendly and helping each other with the builds, which is something I'm really happy to see. It's like a showcasing channel. People can get hype about some of the crazy loot drops they're seeing. Of course, you know, this league, while not everybody has enjoyed the way this league's turned out with the looting and magic finding, quite a few people have actually, and maybe you're one of them. If you're listening to this now, you probably are. So we're going to start by checking out POB. I have 3 here. I'm going to start with Tornado Shot Soul Thirst Deadeye Final. Now, I put Final on here because all 3 of these stepping stone, these points, are essentially the final iteration of the character at that particular gearing point. So this is, I'm pretty sure, the final iteration of my Soul Thirst Deadeye. Before I actually equipped the Headhunter and started doing Omniscience, things like that. Speaking of Omniscience, Omniscience will be sort of the staple of the second portion of this. Now, Omniscience is a lot cheaper than Headhunter, and if I could do it all over again, I probably would have tried to squeeze Omniscience in before getting the Headhunter. But also, at the same time, I got the Headhunter fairly early. It was still only about 120 or 130 divines at the time, if I'm not mistaken. But it should go without saying, the character that reached this point started off as my very own Soul Thirst Deadeye build guide that I set out to make and follow through. By the end of day 5 of this league, I had that build and its guide and its recommended pieces basically finished. In fact, I had ran that same exact build the league before. You can search back in the history of my channel, see this sort of low-budget showcase Tornado Shot Deadeye, and you can see, you know, a lot of people got hyped for it then, and this is what kind of started this whole process. I did essentially the same thing this league that I did last league, with the exception of having to get rarity on gear, which did not come into play yet at this point. But let's take a look here, and you'll see, actually this one has more movement speed than any other one that I had. I really prioritize movement speed, and it makes sense too, because with the Soul Thirst and Soul Eater buffs, you're on the clock in a way that you're not, actually, with the Headhunter buffs lasting 60 whole seconds. Now, with this character and the flask setup that I had, my flasks were lasting almost 1 minute, actually. But for any of you who have played Soul Thirst, you know that the power dynamic of that build is quite interesting and predictable, which is one of the nice things. But the lows are very low and the highs are very high. So it's quite a skill-based type of playstyle. And I know there are some of you who relish in that. Maybe you don't even want to switch to Headhunter that much, but of course Headhunter is overall a lot more power. This should look very familiar, this tree. Should look quite familiar to you. Based on some changes from the original build guide, I do have a passive cluster. Now, these are not exactly the best points. Smite of the Weak is definitely not the best point. Calamitous is actually really good, though, and then Fuel the Fight's also very good. I have Onslaught over here. Now, even though I have Darossel's Defiance, I still have Onslaught as a backup right here in Graceful Assault. Do not have the Brutal Restraint yet to get Onslaught there, which is what I did later on. Inspired Learning is, of course, in there with the usual point allocation here. I thought maybe I had gotten a third medium cluster, but I just couldn't quite fit it in. In fact, you would have noticed this is a level 96 tree, I think it was. Level 96, not level 100. No Megalomaniac, so I have to do Taste for Blood, and I think there's an extra point right here that doesn't necessarily have to be taken, but that point went there. All of the Flask increased effect duration modifiers. I do not have Blood Rage going on yet, so going for the Mastery Frenzy when you hit marked enemy. Again, very similar actually to the League Start build guide. Just basically the gear is kind of what we need to look at. Windward is still here because, you know, when you have any number of Soul Eater stacks, you're attacking like 40 times a second, so the whole like stutter step, shoot and go, shoot and go, shoot and go. When you shoot, you actually get like 10 stacks of this, even for like a split second. But I think what we really need to look at here is the items here. So we'll notice that I have a Lionized Glare. I still kept this for a very long time. Now, I think most of you who would have been following my footsteps would have already upgraded this with a different physical DPS bow, but I decided to go ahead and keep it, even though I'm playing. What you see here is basically this POB. I actually remember it was around 70 to 80 divines worth of gear at the time. Some of it may be more expensive now. The quiver I had was very good. I did go through a few different quivers, but again, nowhere even near mirror tier yet. Of course, I had the Gull Helm. I got very lucky and got a super nice Gull Helm. I think I paid like 15 divines for this really early, not counting the enchantment. I had to buy that as well. This was before many people were looking for a double corruption like this. But look at this. I mean, the double corruptions are just exceptional here, and it allowed me to do a lot of different things with Reservation, getting +1 level Socketic Gems. Darossel's Defiance. I'm not going to explain why I choose Darossel's Defiance. You know, that's actually in the build guide why I choose it. Long story short, super fast endurance charge acquisition, has some interesting dynamics with Immortal Call and Worm Sign gloves, and in extension, inspiration support as one of the main support links to your main ability. Yeah, I had basically the best boots that I ever had right here. I mean, these boots were exceptional, and of course way more powerful than Magic Find boots, so it gave me a lot of extra player power. Now later on I switched to Magic Find. By the way, I should mention that this iteration of build, I can't remember exactly the timing of it, but it was definitely before figuring out that God Touched farming was a real thing for solo players. It was after my own discovery of divination card farming being good, but before God Touched farming. So I knew that Goldworm boots were in the running for a sort of upgrade or side grade to Magic Find variation. Still sporting my Karui Ward with additional curse, which I had to make myself. Still sporting the Taming, so, you know, a lot of the original pieces still on here. The Amulet's definitely better than the original. Even got a nice Corruption of the Soul Thirst. So I feel like this one's just kind of marked with better corruptions than what you see on the build guide, more than anything. Also getting Corrupted Blood cannot be inflicted on you, kind of important. Had that on Replica Conqueror's Efficiency. The skills, one thing I kind of want to look at here is comparing between the 3 different POBs is the aura setup here. So you can see I'm running a full Vitality, Herald of Purity, because the bow is 100% physical, Grace and Hatred, and Defiance Banner. And that's it. That's all I could fit in there. That's with Sovereignty anointed. That's with, I believe, all of the masteries, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, we got, or no, where it is. No, actually, no life reservation mastery there, but I do have the Grace reservation here, and no Defiance banner. So it was interesting. You know, it's always interesting when you switch out your gear a little bit to see where the reservation is at. And then I was still doing increased effect here because I was not yet using Divination Distillate, basically not using any magic find at all at this point. And so if you are someone who has already kind of completed the Soul Thirst build, you absolutely can sub out some of the gear. I've been telling people this recently. You can sub out some of the gear. Like, you can sub out one of the rings. You can absolutely sub out the taming for a decent Ventors. You could potentially even sub out both rings for decent Ventors. You might have some issues with Chaos Res and or Omniscience if you're doing that. But you can also, you know, take out boots like these and get Goldworm. Going to lose a lot of player power in the process, but I mean 20% increased item quantity. I still think increased item quantity is very good. In balance, it's still very good. You don't want to have, you know, an insane amount of increased item rarity and like no increased item quantity. You don't want that. You do want some combination of the two. And then you can sub out one of these flasks. I mean, you could sub out the Jade Flask for a Gold Flask. Certainly. Maybe you'd still want to craft reduced effective curses on you, but maybe not. Actually, I'd probably drop the Cheetah suffix there and get the gold, get the Rarity Flask there. So certainly you can get a Rarity Flask, a Goldworm Boots, and one Ventors at the very least. In order to switch, and it would be very useful for you if you're someone who's running my Soul Thirst build and you're trying to think, you know, I really want to do magic finding. See everybody enjoying magic find so much, I don't know how to get it on there. That is kind of the one thing I would look at changing. And if I had to go back in time, tell myself, you know, this God Touch thing is the real thing, I would have probably done that. I would have changed those things like that. So yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. It's going to be a long video, obviously. In full uncut, but there it is. You know, that is the first iteration, and you know, I very much enjoyed it. I had kind of this melancholic feeling when I swapped out Soul Thirst, finally got the Headhunter, because, you know, I miss it. I'm looking forward to using Soul Thirst in some manner next time. So let's move on and check out the second iteration. Now, the second iteration, immediately right there, you see a massive wheel, Thread of Hope. Gives you a lot of cool options with increased reservation, attack speed, movement speed. This is not something I invented. It's something I copied from last league, I think it was, or the league before. People started doing this. And then you see the Brutal Restraint. So this particular iteration is marked by things like the different jewels, going Omniscience. Still running the Gullhelm, actually, at this point. Getting some of the Magic Find gear on there. So let's start with the passive tree here. Let's see. I now have the more typical large cluster jewel. These are the three notables that everybody always uses. I have a Megalomaniac that's excellent, absolutely excellent for this, giving me the Culling Strike, allowing me to save 3 points from Taste of Blood with Feast of Flesh, also getting % life out of that. And then Master of the Maelstrom is a good option, definitely not like the absolute best third option. I mean, these two are essentially like two of the very best you could get. And then the third one is very good. It's definitely like A tier. So we got S tier, A tier, Megalomaniac, as far as I'm concerned. 40% increased elemental weakness effect is, if I remember correctly, 6% increased damage taken by enemies, plus 10% free shock and ignite. Not too bad. Actually pretty good for 1 point. 1 point there. Yeah, let's see. So with the Omniscience setup, we are going over into the Attributes Mastery. Oh, yeah, I forgot. There's also the 12 passive cluster, which I did have sort of Abyss one. So this is well after the last POB I showed you. I mean, this is like a full month after. Really have fleshed out the gear. That point's supposed to be there. Right there. I should save that now. Okay, and then I also had made a completely separate video featuring Fury of Nature and how good that is. This is something I'm definitely going to miss as I retire this character, not having Fury of Nature anymore. But I don't think it is just like, it's not the be-all end-all. I did hype it up quite a bit, and I think it was legit amazing, and some of you really do think it's amazing. But Blast Freeze is still an option that can kind of handle impart. I mean, it'll be like a third as good as the freeze proliferation, and then you won't get the shock proliferation at all, which is unfortunate. But that is how it goes. Now, most of the points, way more points than usual, are congregated into the brutal restraint, because this is a very, very good brutal restraint. You can see here, let's actually go through this here. So I got 20 cold res. I believe that's my worst one. Actually useless for me at this point. Plus 20 flat dex, 8% effective non-cursed auras, 5% movement speed. Alchemist Genius, pretty huge, 20% elemental damage, 5% attack speed, 20% evasion, plus 20 dex. Onslaught on kill, which is one I mandated, and then 5% movement speed again. So you can see, also 5% dex and more 5% movement speed. So looks like this had 3 separate 5% movement speed. It's pretty obvious that with this seed I was prioritizing onslaught on kill and then movement speed and then enough dex to cover, and then still getting like an increased effective non-curse auras. Super, super nice. Let's actually take a look here and see what auras I was running on this one. So, after removing the bow, Lionized Glare, I had to use Precision. As you can see, got Precision here. And you can see I started using the Arrogant Support, and so that means I'm using Divination Distillate as one of the flasks. Because I'm reserving life, which means I would have gotten the life mastery over here, reservation of skills for life. And, you know, basically we're looking at like all 620 or all 2120 alternate quality gems at this point. I mean, this character is decked out really hard. I mean, this was easily like, let's see, I'm not wearing any. Oh, I am wearing my mirrored. Okay, so at this point I'm wearing a mirrored bow, but not the mirrored quiver yet. So this is probably around 4 mirrors. Somewhere between 3 and 5 mirrors is where this would have been for sure. Somewhere in there. And yeah, let's go back to auras here. So there's a lot of auras in play. This is an interesting combination. Anomalous Blood and Sand combined with an Awakened level 5 Enhance gives you, I believe it was 55% increased projectile speed, which is also projectile damage as well, which is really nice. Oh wow, I was actually using a level 5 Enlighten. I got lucky and managed to self-corrupt 2 level 5 Enlightens pretty early on. So probably wouldn't be able to use the Blood and Sand. Most people trying to copy this. Yeah, also have this nice setup with the Val Haste, Immortal Call. Blood Rage is now in play. Increased duration with Immortal Call, super nice. Also, Awaken Enhance support is really good with Blood Rage and Immortal Call. Probably a better option, to be completely honest. At some point I switched that out. Herald of Ice was actually put into, at the time, a pariah. So, again, still hadn't fully wrapped my head around how important rarity was, so I was still over-prioritizing increased quantity. I believe I had like 66% increased item quantity, which was actually a tiny bit more than my character last league, which only had to prioritize increased quantity for divination card farming in the Crimson Temple. But I do have the Ventors, I got the Headhunter here, I got the Divination Distillate, Gold Worm are here. No Goblin Helmet yet, and that's about it. So kind of looking at, I believe, somewhere around 66% increased item quantity and maybe around 250% increased item rarity, somewhere in that neighborhood. Let's see if I was yet using the 5 link with increased rarity support. I am curious about that here. Yep, I was using it. So this is kind of a controversial decision. I know there's a Goblin chest you can use instead of Daryl's Defiance to get a free item rarity support. My character is very strong. This was actually about the strongest my character ever was, offensively speaking. 28 million DPS based on the configuration here. Now, there are a lot of things configured here in addition, like 1000 Rampage, like all the Trinity, Gale Winds, Endurance Charges, no power charges, however. Have you killed recently? Leeching, Genius, Flask, you know, all that. Tailwind, it's all there. But those are the normal combat buffs, so that's fair. Shock's actually supposed to be 10. This is a bare minimum effective shock. I should honestly put this higher because I'm using Fury of Nature. But anything that gets shocked is going to be at least 10, so actually I'm going to resave that again to get that corrected. Movement speed down to 316%, still very high. And One thing I actually forgot to check earlier was effective hit pool. So effective hit pool, 38,000 right there. Actually, I want to take a glance here at Soulthirst again, see the effective hit pool. Effective hit pool, 89,000. Now, this is a little misleading because this is counting windward on, and it's obviously not on 100% of the time. When you get hit, you lose your endurance charges, you lose windward. But no, seriously, like I had a really, really big effective hit pool. 89,000 with only 3,200 life and no energy shield. Pretty strong. Let's go back to here with Omni again. Yeah, it kind of didn't occur to me. I knew Omniscience was nerfed by about 1/3 of its power. But wow, it's still super strong. Because the moment I took it off, I lost like 1/4 of all my power. Like all of my damage. So yeah, right after this POB here, I took Omniscience off and did essentially my final form, which is way more item rarity oriented. And we're going to get into that in just a second here. Just to make sure there's nothing else really to talk about. You know, the gear is phenomenal at this point. Yeah, it's 3 to 5 mirrors. It's not like there's any pieces of gear that are just like, well, you know, I really need to upgrade this. I really need to upgrade this. I think at this point, the upgrade I was going for next was the mirrored quiver, actually. Yeah, now I don't have a corrupted Omniscience. I should be using a second Ventors, but I didn't realize that at the time. Mantra of Flames now has a corrupted blood. No more Replica Conqueror's efficiency. I no longer needed it. I was able to get my cost down to 0 anyway, just with the flask suffix. And yeah, Watcher's Eye was Precision, Grace, Grace. So this is kind of just none of these Watcher's Eye mods actually are really like build enabling. They're just quality of life, all of them. But a very good Watcher's Eye for sure. Okay, let's take a glance at the third and final one. Tornado Shot with more focus on Magic Find and Headhunter here. So first thing you'll notice is the damage is way lower, 13 million. There, still got everything here. I actually increased, I increased the effective shock because I was like, you know, this is just stupid. Everything is like shocked max, basically. Max shock is 50%, by the way, so I'm still kind of, it's hard to really figure out where you're at on that. But this kind of feels like normal combat buffs that I would normally have up. And effective physical hit pool is actually up more, so I'm a little bit more tanky now with this change. Let's take a look at the tree. There are some changes to the tree here. So weird that one keeps being undone. Okay, so Fury of Nature is still in play. This time I had to go plus all attributes because I dropped Brutal Restraint. Now that made me gain an extra jewel, which allowed me to use a second Megalomaniac, which means I was able to split Feast of Flesh and Wish for Death separate, and then I squeezed more ores in here. That's one of the most interesting things about this particular setup is the ores. Let's actually just go straight to that here. Vitality is still in there, and Herald of Ice is now. These two things are in there with the in the helmet slot for the life reservation side of things, and then for I'm devoting my entire 6-link here to. So I actually swapped the life 6-link into the 4-link, and then the 4-link into the 6-link because now I have so much mana reservation. I was able to go kind of crazy on the 6-link, and I'm able to run Grace, Hatred, Purity of Elements, and Haste. I'm running actual haste, not just Val haste, which, well, that'll short your damage a little bit. Okay, slightly misleading. Didn't realize that wasn't selected there. Okay, a little bit more damage than I thought. 16 million. Okay, that's good to see. It's always nice when you didn't realize you hadn't quite had the configuration perfect and suddenly you're moving 20% faster and doing 10% more damage. So yeah, because I'm running actual haste. Purity of Elements, there was no way to get a special reservation mod on there. In fact, I'm still missing a point, which is so weird. So I'm missing a point. Oh, right here. Gosh, so crazy. Well, save that. Get it saved. 16 million. Great. All right. Yeah, so I have Frantic Aspect and Spiteful Presence. And then this is the worst Megalomaniac mod I have on here, is like 8%. So these 5, there are essentially there are 5 Megalomaniac mods that I really want on here. The 6 could be Grace, but actually it's not really necessary. So these 5 I really want. Now I lost Alchemist Genius on the Brutal Restraint, so I got Spiked Concoction because I realized very quickly that losing that 10%, just going from 40% increased flask effect to 30% increased flask effect was actually a lot lost there doing that. But with Spiked Concoction, you know, it's up 100% of the time, and an extra 5% attack speed too. Storm Rider is super strong. That actually allowed me to get power charges in for once. You can see power charges do make a bit of difference, going from 15 million to 16.2. And then Astonishing Affliction is not the greatest thing, but it's the best secondary choice here. So this is going to be Blast Freeze moving on forward as I move on to the next step, which we'll get into at the end of this video. Astonishing Affliction will be replaced by Blast Freeze here pretty soon. You can see that I've got an Elegant Hubris now, so this is something really interesting I did. I have it anointed Discerning Taste for an increased 40% rarity. The big wheel was allowing me to get Discerning Taste right here, 40%, and then the last one here. Now, I figured this out by the Timeless Jewel Calculator, which, yeah, I suppose I should probably link that in the description as well. So I have, for very few passive points, I was able to get 3 of these 40% nodes. Not a huge amount of value. I mean, it's not like there's any other crazy nodes that I'm taking, but anyway, it's still really nice. So this is the only real option you have with this tree. You have to go to here. You're not going to go anywhere else, probably. I guess you could maybe try to get it over here, but if I remember correctly, there's not very many good options, sadly. And then you would ruin some things over here. Yeah, really making amazing use out of the big wheel here, aren't I? Getting at this, these over here. These down here, this right here, and then even getting 40% rarity right here, and as well as the 10% enemy elemental resistances. Honestly, I mean, this big wheel, I mean, what a revelation that was. That was really good. Highly recommend that. Also, I started, because I had to switch my flasks around, I was suddenly short a bit of spell suppression, so I had to get these. This is actually really nice. Life flasks gain 3 charges when you suppress spell damage. Counts for Divination Distillate. Super nice. And then I was able to get critical strike chances increased by suppression chance. I mean, this is 3 super valuable passive points that I suddenly needed. So that's nice. I had to drop the increased movement speed over here. And I found myself in pretty nice form. I mean, this is the character that I'm going to showcase in a map here. This exact character. Let's go through the items here before we do that. So we got, again, the mirrored bow. We got a mirrored quiver now, which is just, I mean, these are like the 3 best implicits I've ever seen. Somehow beat the double crit both fire, that the additional arrow implicit from the last one, I feel. Last league, that was. We got ourselves a very nice, not perfect, but very nice, what we call this goblin helmet, I guess. Giving me a grand total of 108% increased rarity found off of God Touch Rares. I do think bench crafting +1 socket 8 AoE gems is nice. I was able to get Vitality and Herald of Ice an extra level because of that. Darossel's Defiance still running it, and now I have +1 socket 8 gem, +2 aura gems. I'm running 4 auras in here. Pretty big deal, getting +3 auras in there and getting the level 6 Enlightened support to enable me to run all of that together, and couldn't be happier with that. Still running the same gloves as before. Boots are even better here. They got +1 max endurance charges. Actually did make a difference because it meant the difference between my Tornado Shot ultimately costing 1 mana versus 0 mana. And 0 mana is good. It still procs inspiration support because anytime I use Immortal Call or get hit, I lose my endurance charges. Therefore, the next arrows that are fired. So arrows, occasionally I will fire arrows that do make Tornado Shot cost like 2, 3, or 4 mana. It's a beautiful thing. It just works really nicely. Inspiration support uptime is like 100% essentially. This amulet was the very last thing, and essentially the pinnacle final gear slot that I had to get. I blew a lot of tainted teardrops on this. I will explain how to get this here. You anoint a Strangle Grasp, which is a Blight exclusive, Uber Blight exclusive drop. Actually, I think it can be found in a card turn-in now this league. And you pick your 4 anointments. In this case, I wanted my extra curse. I got 2 separate reservation ones, and then allocates Claws of the Magpie. Is this point right here. It's this point. And yes, it does work as it flips over from the Timeless Jewel, so let that be known. That does work. And where was I at here? Go back in here. Okay, here we go. Back to this, the bricked Strangle Grasp. So, you anoint Strangle Grasps, and then you attempt to brick it with a Val Orb. Supposedly has a 1 in 4 chance of bricking. Yes, you actually try to brick it. That is a good outcome, because if nothing happens, then the amulet doesn't have any explicit still. But if you brick it, it suddenly will spawn with 6 explicits of random tier and random type. And then the anointments stay, because the anointments cannot suddenly just be removed. They will stay until unless you messed with it somehow. So just don't mess with the anointments. The implicit is still there as well. I got very lucky with this. I suspected that I would have to probably turn this back into a unique Carnage Heart or something, but fortunately got extremely good explicits. However, the all attributes roll was low, and I thought I needed a high one, and I kind of ruined the item through through a huge number of tainted divine teardrops. So if you're wondering why the divine tainted teardrop market was so thin, that's because I bought them all for a while there. I probably bought over 100 of them. I'd say at least 100, which is 200 divines, by the way, worth of those, and still did not end up with anything great. I mean, this is not even that great, but I figured eventually I would get it. So I got it high enough, and my attributes are high enough here that I can use everything with the other cluster jewel. I can use everything, and I have a 99% chance to hit. Not counting the enchantment. Increase accuracy while you have onslaught. So I can equip everything. I have a 100% chance to hit in combat. It's really nice. I got 2 very, very nice Ventor's Gambles. I did need high resist. I did set up my gear in order to need high resist. I will probably improve these Ventor's Gambles at some point. Maybe, the league just got extended by an entire month, basically. So I'm down with that. It's no big deal. There, I was able to switch the quartz flask over to a silver flask because... Oh, where is it? Let's skip it down to the Watcher's Eye here. So I got a new Watcher's Eye. Because I swapped out of Brutal Restraint, I no longer needed all those points into Winter's Spirit down here, and was able to save a huge number of points. Now, don't get me wrong, these points are still pretty good in their own right, but you don't really need them without the Brutal Restraint, so you save a lot of points. You can do other things with it. In that case, I was looking forward to that. So now I do have a sort of build enabling Watcher's Eye here by having phasing while affected by haste, which is one of the reasons I'm wearing haste, and then physical damage converted to cold damage while affected by hatred. Notice it's not 40%, but it actually doesn't have to be, because both in the Omni variant as well as this variant, actually, I probably should have caught this before. Tornado Shot is 2023, so it has a 69% conversion to random elements. So I only need up to 31%, which is a super, super nice quality of life, because who in their right mind wants to try and divine a Watcher's Eye to perfect these days? That's a lot of money. So you can see I just focused on divining the movement speed up to perfect, tried to get the 6% life roll, and then enough physical to conversion cold damage while affected by hatred. By the way, in case you weren't aware, the gem overrides the jewel, so this effectively has 31% physical damage converted to cold damage. It doesn't actually have 35. It only has 31 because that's how the game reads it on that. Elegant Hubris is here. I did manage to find a few of them. Double corrupted one successfully. Just cutesy little thing. But this is the seed that I was using there. A lot of you are already familiar with it here. Let's see, the large cluster. Yeah, so this is the large cluster and then the medium cluster. And then I didn't actually mention it, but yes, there is one small passive voices involved. This was also 200 divines at one time, so that was huge. So what is the budget of this one? Yeah, you're looking at somewhere around 7, maybe 8 mirrors, between 6 and 8 mirrors. So the first one was between... So the very first POB I showed you was about 70, 80, maybe 90 divines. The second POB I showed you is about 3 to 5 mirrors. This one's about 6 to 8 mirrors on a Tornado Shot Magic Find character. This character has 51% increased item quantity and 545% increased item rarity. A nice spread there, sort of 10 to 1 ratio there. Really happy with it, but I'm not done with it. We are going to have a sort of bonus chapter to this story that I will probably make a second video on, and that is I'm attempting to potentially make a new meta Tornado Shot Ascendant, which I do think there is some viability there. I've already streamed a little bit of that in theorycrafting, so that will be sort of next on the agenda. But for the sake of this video, this one's all about the Deadeye. You know, I don't want to steal the spotlight. I don't want to have the Ascendant steal the spotlight on this video, but you know, that's what we're progressing to. Got a lot of time left in the league to do it, and Deadeye has been the staple, you know, Magic Find, iconic Magic Find character because of how strong Tornado Shot is on a Deadeye, even with, you know, sort of junky gear that just has Magic Find on it. As long as you have like have a mirrored bow at least, and then, you know, everything else still falls into place and performs very highly, as I will showcase here in this moment in the map. So I think that basically covers everything. Hopefully, you know, I'm not actually spell suppressed cap, by the way. A lot of people don't know that. I only have 92%. You know, not a huge difference between 92 and 100%. But you're going to notice this character surprisingly tanky, 4,000 life almost. Now, I am running Petrified Blood, of course. The damage is still there. And I want us to go into a map, and we're going to run a map here.
My mana is gone.
It's going to be quite exciting. I am going to showcase, essentially, one of the most aspirational. Now, this is not the most aspirational map you could run. This is not 100% Skittering Orb Deli farming. But this is Deli Mirror here. +1 Legion, +2 Abyss, Deli Mirror, and Beyond. Elevated Beyond, by the way. This is Winged Reliquary, Winged Legion, Winged Abyss, and Elder Scarab. Now, it's kind of unfortunate, especially with Wandering Path. You know. Breach, Winged Breach is the other option. I don't really like Breach. I think it's kind of bad this league with the God Touch farming. I do use Breach if I have Flash Breach, so if I try to run this, so if I was running a Deli Orb one with non-Wandering Path, I would do that. But this is a Wandering Path build, so we're making the maps extra difficult. I'm going to be running Einar on the passive, so this is a little bit new here. Get a little bit of extra juice from Einar. Did go ahead and decide to do Beyond. Beyond is actually extremely good with Wandering Path, getting the extra Tainted Currency. Tainted Currencies can be worth quite a bit. A few extra points in Tormented Souls. Nothing taken too seriously there. Whoops. Don't need a point there. I'm not even sure what I can do with that extra point. Kind of think about it on the fly. Just put it here. Probably not the best place for it, but there's no reason to fret over it too much. This is not a divination card farming strategy, you know, so you could kind of do something like this on Defiled Cathedral and run the Winged Divination Scarab instead of an Elder Scarab, for example. Wouldn't be a bad idea, but I don't even care about the emblems, really. I just want as many legions as I can get on the map. I want as much pack size as I can get on it. I want as many abysses as I can get. I want the pack size to be as high as I can possibly get, the number of monsters on each abyss, you know, shrines, whatever. Just trying to put as many monsters as I can on the map. Not doing Alva, we're doing Einar instead because it's proven itself time and time again to be superior for God Touch farming. Do have a few points in Delirium. So let me show you what this looks like in action. And I've even hand selected a map that would be extremely dangerous for the average player. So this is crit mods, this is elemental reflect, monsters fire 2 additional projectiles, Fizz is extra cold, and then I suppose the others don't matter a whole lot. Frenzy, power charge on hit, maimed with attacks. I don't know. I mean, not too bad, but I mean, there's some really raunchy mods in there. A lot of people wouldn't even be able to run this map because of the reflect. This character can run both elemental reflect and physical reflect, and yeah, I can't use anomalous frost blink, but you know, it's there. So here we go. I'm going to be running Legion, and we're going to be forcing Einar. Fortunately, I still have quite a few missions left. Alright, enjoy this test run. Definitely got to call it a test run, you know, just in case. just in case something interesting happens. Oh, that's probably a God Touch right there in that temporal bubble. What do you guys think? Maybe? No, but it's Soul Eater. Well, hell, I can't steal it, unfortunately. Man, a temporal bubble, Soul Eater, red beast, or yellow beast, I guess it is. So with Deli Mirror in this particular setup, I'm going to definitely want to try and unlock all of the altars before I do anything crazy. Now, it's wise if I go ahead and try to, you know, play the front end of the Deli Mirror. I'm not going to spend any time looting, but I don't want to waste this part. But I don't really want to try and do any mechanics if I can. So here is where I do something a little interesting. I just hightail it straight to the back end of the map. Okay, I got myself I got a lucky shrine here. This is the resistance shrine. Not the most powerful shrine in the game. But on the back end, there's always some mechanics to do, and one abyss may not really be good enough to pause the mirror, but yeah, it's okay. I think we can kind of get away with just doing one abyss right here real quick. Should be enough time to go back to the front end of the map, and this is one of the reasons you want to have a character that's so fast, right? Now the Beyond boss spawn, that's okay. I did get a lot of Beyond monsters to spawn. I already did a different map like this, and I got so much Beyond currency. So it is understandable. Obviously Beyond is going to get a bit wasted in a map like this. You're just going to spawn so many Beyond monsters and kill so many that you're probably going to spawn the boss on average well before you're halfway done with the map. I think that's fine. You know, there's not any other major great possibilities. By the way, Beyond is still good for God Touch Rare. It's actually pretty good. In fact, I would consider it above average overall. Above average. I'm going to go ahead and hit a Legion up here. And let's see, I have 17 seconds to get there. Now, I can see the Deli Mirror, unfortunately, is trying to encroach on me here. So that's going to be a little tricky there with the abysses. And I do want to try and unlock all of this if possible. Okay, I guess we got it all. So I may not be able to do all of these abysses in the right spot. So what I can kind of do here is I can make sure I at least get all 4 legions done in the Deli Mirror. Delirium gives you extra drops. Now, it's a little bit unknown how much extra quantity can be found in Delirium, but it's definitely a little bit for sure. And yeah, there's been some changes that have been made in the game, obviously, with monsters' intrinsic quantity values, but it was said quite some time ago that Delirium, or Delirious, gives you extra monsters in some way, shape, or form. So it's always going to be a decent mechanic for magic finding. Now, what makes Delirious so special with magic finding these days is that the way the Eldritch minions spawn on maps. What you want to do is you want to be able to try and put as many monsters, you want to cover the entire map with monsters if possible. Because that will force, because evidently there's Eldritch minions sort of in a hidden realm somewhere. They cannot spawn if there's no regular monsters nearby. There has to be regular monsters nearby. And they can only start spawning after you initiate the influence too, so that's also another tricky aspect to it. So Delirium works extremely well in this case. Beyond also works quite well. In spawning Eldritch minions in places that you've maybe already traveled after having initiated the influence. It's all quite confusing, but long story short, Deli good. Deli Mirror is very good overall. If your build can handle it. Now, this is pretty aspirational content, as I mentioned before. This is actually a very difficult map, but you can see with how I've built this character that it doesn't look like a very difficult map. Templar boss. I got Legion bosses in here. I'm going to kill the Templar boss here in a second. And I don't know, where is he at? Oh, he's right here. Okay, let's see how fast he dies. Okay, he's dead. I mean, that was it. Basically 3-shotted. Now, I do have a lot of buffs, obviously. I got only 28 Headhunter buffs, surprisingly. Headhunter has been nerfed a lot in the past few leagues. Let's see about that. Beyond monsters. The Beyond bosses are actually the tankier, even tankier than Legion bosses these days, so you really want to test out your DPS. Go fight a Beyond boss deep in the Delirium Mirror like I just did there, and then you'll get a much better sense. Now, obviously, I haven't done the map boss yet, but I'm not even going to do it unless the Screaming Invitation is up for grabs. I'm not going to do it. It's not up for grabs. Not even worth the time. Also, another reason why I go for Elder instead of Breach, because yeah. So we're almost done with this map, and you know, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's straight uncut uncut video. So I was just hoping, you know, we might get a nice God Touch drop. 18 is current record. I'm pretty sure I'm going to shatter that record if I do very many winged scarab runs, because that was just a decent gilded scarab showing. But still, 18 divine orbs off of one sourced monster is my personal record, and there is absolutely have a pretty good chance of breaking that record if I were to run maps like this for very long at all. A lot of people in my own Discord have shattered that record. I mean, there've been a couple people just the last 48 hours post over 30 divine orbs found off of one monster, and they don't even have as much magic find as my character. So, yeah, certainly know it's possible. It remains to be seen whether or not winged scarab all-out juicing is indeed the most lucrative thing to do on average. That will be fun to test, and it's something I still have to test. But here it is, the last abyss, finishing up, extending itself, an extra long final abyss. I mean, I guess that's nice. Wow, only 61 simulacrum splinters. It's kind of weird to only get 61. Usually I usually get over 100 on maps like this. Although I might need to put breach back in if I want that. We're not doing this for the simulacrum splinters though, that's for sure. Oh, it's a Beyond boss. I mean a Legion boss still there. I go ahead and open all of the chests here in this case because this is a winged reliquary scarab, and uniques, yes, uniques can drop from these Legion chests. So I think it's kind of wise to actually open the chest and spend a tiny bit of extra time doing that. Almost nothing spawned in the back of the map. That's why I got so few splinters. But that's it, you know, the map is basically done there. Okay. And to close this video, we just kind of recap real quick how much everything here costs. This bow was mirrored. Obviously, I did not craft it. It was mirrored. It cost me 100 divine orbs plus a mirror to get this bow. The quiver was also mirrored by somebody completely different. It cost me a 20 divine fee, but I actually helped the guy by donating 60 divine orbs to help get it divined up before mirroring. And the final product here is what you see after he divined it about 60 times. So that was nice and a worthy sacrifice, I think. The helmet I did craft myself. It cost me about 60 or around 60 divines to make it. And then I blew about another 70 divines on divine orbs trying to divine it up to 50% rarity of items found. Not my most intelligent moment. I could have probably, I think around 5 divines I had one that was basically this good anyway. Oh well. Incidentally, I'm planning to maybe make a better one at some point, but yeah, that's a side point. The chest I've had a long time. I did have to pay, I think, like 30 or 40 divines for this chest. It might have been 56. I'm forgetting a little bit, but it was definitely a few dozen divine orbs for this chest. Actually, excellently rolled, and even has a perfect baked-in armor value. So 1866 is about as high a value as armor as you're going to possibly get, and it has a high vitality roll. But the most important thing is the implicit here, and this is what makes it special. And the implicit +1 to level of socketing gems is kind of the how should I say, the straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of me deciding whether or not to craft the goblin chest, the infamous goblin chest with +1 curse with elevated crit and the baked-in rarity support. If I lose +1 level of socketing gems, it changes everything with my aura setup, and suddenly I'm way better off, because you can see I have a level 6 awaken enlightened support, and that is what enables me to run vitality, haste, grace, hatred, purity of elements, oh yeah, and petrified blood, as well as herald of ice. It's all in there. Yeah. Headhunter cost me about 130 divines at the time. I guess with this enchant, it's probably like 180 to 200 divines in there. Ventor's Gamble on the left here was 120 divines. I remember paying 120 divines for it. And this one I got much earlier in the league. I think, you know, so much earlier in the league, the price reflected that timing. I think I got this for like 50 divines, something like that. I don't like that lightning res roll, obviously, but anyway. These gloves, I got this very early in the league. You have to pay an arm and a leg for these gloves these days if you want +1 max frenzy with curse element weakness on hit. And yes, it is my fault that gloves with this double implicit cost an arm and a leg. Take full responsibility for that. They cost me, I think, 10 or 15 divines at the time. It was very early on before anybody even saw that, you know, the double corruption was a thing. These boots, man, I stole these boots. I already had 10% increased movement speed, but I absolutely... Last league, I spent the entire league with a live search on for these boots. Movement speed and max endurance charge. They never came. These boots cannot be found. I mean, these boots are far more rare than these gloves, for example, and they basically don't exist. So, you know, if you're wanting to get these boots, tough luck. You're probably not going to find them. I got away with a steal here. I think it was 15 divines. I'm honestly surprised the person sold it to me, but they were sitting there. Nobody was buying them, you know, for a few hours, I think. So I just stumbled onto them. I was like, oh my god, I got to get those. Also, one of the very last things that I ever changed with the gear on this set is re-enchanting away from attack speed if you've killed recently to chance to avoid being stunned if you killed recently. Man, if I can go back in time and re-enchant that was a content viewer suggestion. You know, we already have 28% chance to avoid stun, but only 28% chance to avoid stun. And when you swap out of the Brine King over here, suddenly stun becomes pretty dang deadly. And you really want to be stun immune if you're not going to use this. Now, if you don't have Purity of Elements running, you should be running Brine King and Soul of Garakan, likely. But in my case, I mean, I don't get much value out of Relicash, a little bit for bleeds, but Soul of Solaris is pretty nice. I mean, there is a lot of value to be had out of that, especially when you're running around the map and you face off against Marcus or whatever his name is, one of the Beyond bosses, and you're trying to loot stuff, and he's the only one up, you know, raining on your parade. Let's see, and then the very last thing is this amulet, which I blew about 200 divines on at least. It took me 11 tries to get this to brick successfully. So, I mean, that right there is like 100 divines instantly. And then I blew like 200 divines worth of tainted teardrops on it. Now, the end game of this amulet looks more like you got to brick it, and then you're probably going to get bad mods. You're going to use tainted chaos orbs. It's not going to work out. It's going to brick over into white, likely, and then you use a tainted mythic orb as a last-ditch effort to force it back into a global Onyx Amulet unique drop. And that is this item right here. These have a 50-50 chance. So it's a 50% chance to go unique, 50% chance not. I think Carnage Heart, or actually Yoke, is probably the best option there. I think the absolute most ballin' end game result of this amulet will probably be a Yoke of Suffering, I think it is. Go check out the stats on that. It's super nice, Onyx Amulet, but it's not got the greatest weighting, so it'd be very unlikely to hit that. It does obey weightings, which is why I like Carnage Heart. Actually, has a pretty high chance. Carnage Heart is very good, and the most likely going to be the outcome for most people who try to make this amulet. But I don't think there'll be very many people trying, because the very beginning step of a complex process is 10 divines for each attempt to even begin. And you're talking about like a whole bunch of sort of coin flips that may or may not fail. So there it is, my friends. That is it. That's all the gear. That's the run. And what's next in the books? Well, next is Tornado Shot Ascendant. I got my reasons. I think you're going to like it. So stay tuned for that. But again, this is all I got for the Tornado Shot Deadeye. We're basically retiring the character. This is a sort of farewell to this wonderful character here. No MTXs on right there for that showcase. I wanted to be true to the character. If you have any questions, please ask in the comment section below. There's a whole bunch of things linked. A whole bunch of valuable things will be linked in the description. Then the Discord, of course. This character gained quite a few fans in the process of this league. So join the Discord. You can learn about how to make this character yourself. A lot of people spitballing ideas. There's even a trade channel. People are doing like hand-me-down gear and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Yeah, we're having a grand old time. This league has been very kind to me, of course. You know, my channel's grown a lot at this time when a lot of other content creators have quit. I've enjoyed bringing this content out to you guys. Glad I finally got around to this video. I knew I kind of wanted to save it until the character was essentially done and to be retired. So without any further ado, I wish you good hunting out there, good God touch hunting especially, and let me know what your maximum divine orb off of one monster is. Better than me, probably, for the time being. I'll catch you guys in the next video.